Those viewers, welcome. This is Omnipresence Talk in Action. I'm Karen Deal, an international sports psychologist, and I have the honor today to be talking to one of my colleagues from Ghana. Sulemani, if you can just introduce yourself, give a bit of a brief bio, who you are, what you do.
All right, that's fine. Before that, I'm super excited to be having you this afternoon as well. I think it's been long overdue, and hopefully everything has a perfect day, and I'm sure today is a perfect day for this program. Yeah, I'm actually Sulemani Agbonor. I'm from Ghana, like you rightly said. I'm from the northern sector of Ghana. Specifically, I'm from the Upper West region. I attended basic school in Upper West region and had my first degree in physical education at the University of Education Winneba Central Region. Since then, I've been on the field as a physical education teacher. Predominantly, I was at Wasina High Technical. Then I was moved to Wasina High School, and I've been there since 2014 to 2016 when I gained admission to study my master's program at the University of Stirling, Winneba, University of Stirling, Scotland. And by 2017 I was back home and I was posted to the Regional Education Directorate as an assistant to the Regional PE Coordinator, and which is more of a kind of administrative role, if I can say that. Because once you move out of the grounds and you are back in the office, you are more like a coordinator, and hopefully all that you do is administrative roles. And at that portfolio, I happen to also double as a sports psychologist and assistant coach to a second tier division in Ghana, specifically Upper West. And I've worked with them up to 2019. Alongside, I've been a tutor at some colleges of education where I teach physical education as a course. And so basically that is Sulemani for you.
Awesome. Can you tell me a bit about your time while you were in the UK and how different was that experience to working in Ghana?
It's a big difference, you know. And I remember when I first arrived in the UK, and it was difficult. I actually arrived in Glasgow and I needed to find my way to Stirling. And so fortunately, my university had made some arrangements for me to be able to get to Stirling. So I was given a SIM and some contact details to contact. So when I arrived in Glasgow, I needed to send emails to my contact person to be aware that I was in Glasgow. And so everything virtually was on email. And so I was solely relying on internet connectivity to be able to have things going. And I was like, what if the internet or anything should happen? It means I'm stranded. How am I going to find my way? But hey, fortunately that didn't happen. And so I was directed to the nearest bus station where I got there and I was booked for Stirling. I had to wait for the next 1 hour 30 minutes at the terminal. And eventually the car was ready for us to leave for Stirling. I spent about 1 hour on the journey, having a view of the countryside and other places, lovely views. And I remember when I arrived in Stirling, my contact still didn't come to pick me, and I needed to find my way to the university. And so I eventually became someone like, I'll have to be asking, you know, because at that material moment, the email seems to be very slow. The chatting via the email was very, very slow. And so I asked, and I was directed to a taxi rank, and I conveyed my things into the taxi, and I arrived in the UK. Actually, back to the question, there's a big cultural difference. If you are not well positioned before you arrive, you kind of like, you are being knocked off your feet, because if you look at the African network system, it's completely different from what you see when you travel outside the continent. Because one, there wasn't language barrier, but people were kind of like busy and you didn't know who to attend to and ask for some kind of help. And so you were very skeptical about who to approach and what the person might think of you if you approach him or her. And so from that moment, I had to gather some kind of momentum and courage to be able to approach a few people. And by doing so, I targeted people who were like security men, because the taxi rank was very close to the train station, the rail station. And so I just had to walk to the rail station, and I met an attendant there. I asked and I was given. But largely, when I finally settled, if I greeted so many people on my way to lectures and nobody responded. So I was like, what is happening here? So I started getting a little bit nervous and anxiety started settling in, because here are people you meet on the way in and out every day when you are leaving for lectures and coming back from library, and hey, you greet them and it's like, it's weird. They turn and look at you. I mean, and so fortunately for me, there was this forum that was organized by the university for foreign students.
Okay.
And I said, no, maybe this should be an opportunity for me to get there and find out things for myself. And so I took advantage of it and I attended the program. And at the program, I actually expressed my frustrations about how people were not responding to greetings and how it was difficult to approach some of my colleagues, you know. But I think before I left the program, I felt well refreshed, because as a matter of fact, the speakers did a very good job. They made me to understand some kind of cultural differences that will keep coming up, and so all I needed to do was to stay focused and don't let them disturb me as much as possible. And so hey, I needed to adjust to the system, and right away I did. And what actually helped me most was the fact that along the way I saw an advert on my school email, and that there was a team in town that was looking for footballers. So they gave the time for the Justify and the venue of the Justify, and the place of the Justify was just right outside the entrance of our university. And so that particular day, I picked up my boots and I went there. And before the close of the Justify, they told me that, oh, Suleiman, well, we have selected you. You are a very good footballer. We want you to play for our team. Are you available to play for our team? I said, yeah, I'm sure. I'm available. When do you play your matches? They say weekend. I said, fine, that's good for me. Then I'm good to go. And so when I started playing football and I started having interactions with some of the guys, then I realized that I was only making some of the things from my mind. I was only having some kind of perceptions from my mind. It wasn't all that I actually thought it was. And I think from there, everything settled. That was how I managed to settle.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, playing sports, just meeting people helped you kind of adjust to the cultural differences and immerse yourself in the new culture.
Sure.
Anything else that helped you make that transition a little easier?
Yes, I'll give that credit to a few friends. When I arrived, I met this Indian guy. Okay, I met this Indian guy at the football field. I went there just to do my personal stuff, and he equally came around to do his personal stuff. And he stopped when I was jogging around. He stopped me and asked me, Charlie, how are you? I said, I'm fine. I'm Kamran Khan. I'm from India. I said, oh, I'm Suleiman Rufai from Ghana. He said, oh, Ghana? I said, yes, Ghana. He said, oh, Kwame Nkrumah. You know, all he could remember about Ghana was Kwame Nkrumah. And I said, yes, Kwame Nkrumah. He said, oh, fine. He said, what are you doing here? I said, oh, I'm here for studies. He said, oh, I'm also here for studies. He said, the uni? I said, yes, the uni. You know, and so that was how we started. Straight away, he had his phone, I had my phone. So we exchanged Facebook contacts. And after chatting for a while, getting to know each other, we had our personal contacts exchanged. And so it was a great deal. He actually came in and supported me because he arrived earlier than I did. Another person I will give credit to is my supervisor, Dr. Pete Kofi. I think along the way, I was struggling to actually cope with so many other things. And I was there one day and I saw an email on my school email. I said, okay, who is this email? When I opened, it was Dr. Pete Kofi who sent me an email and requesting that if I am less busy on, he gave about 3 different times and dates. I should pick one of them and meet me and meet. He gave, and I met him in his office. And so he asked me, are you okay? I said, yes, I'm fine. He said, no, you don't look fine. I said, I'm fine, dog. He said, no, I'm not. I said, okay, fine, I'm not fine. I actually wanted to downplay.
Yeah.
So I actually wanted to downplay the fact that I was fine. I wanted to assume that I was strong. But he insisted, so I have to open up. So I told him that, yeah, doc, I have issues with how to communicate with some of my colleagues. I also have issues with how to go about with some of the academic works. And he sat down and he gave me a whole lot of advice on how I should handle some of the issues. I even remember on one occasion he took me to his house to meet his family. And so the wife was a Caribbean. Okay, the wife was a Caribbean, and so he just took me to the family and I interacted with them. And since then, I've become a frequent and regular visitor at his house. And it has been good. So these are people I can always mention anytime, any day. And then the last person I would say is Joseph. Joseph is from Nigeria.
Okay.
He was in my class. We were doing sports psychology together. He arrived earlier than I did. And so I remember in one of our presentations, they wanted to pair me with someone else, and Joseph said no. He asked the lecturer if it's okay to be paired, myself and him. And the lecturer said, oh, why not? If you want to work with Suleiman, that's fine. And so myself and Joseph, that was our first project and presentation at the uni. And it gave me a whole lot of insight as to how things have been done. It's also worth mentioning as far as this issue is concerned. Yeah.
Great. How did these cultural differences influence you or change you or impact you as a person and as a sports psychologist later on?
Come again?
How did some of these cultural differences influence you as a person and as a practitioner? So how do you, living the experience of being in the UK, how did that change you? How did that impact you? How did it make you a stronger, better person and sports psychologist?
Okay. So let me go for as a person how that influenced me. I was courteous, but when I arrived at the UK, I noticed that I needed to be more courteous. Okay.
Yeah.
Why am I saying this? I remember I got into the uni shop to buy some items, and I picked the items from the shelves, and I needed to make payments. And so when I stepped forward, someone was already in front of me. Okay, and the person moved out to pick some other items that probably she forgot to have picked. So when she came back, she came to stand right in front of me because that was her original position. And I was like, you moved out of the queue, you come back, and you are coming to stand right where you were. So I was a little bit careful not to. And so I allowed the scene, and she went ahead of me to make payments. After she made the payment and she stepped out, I thought she had gone. So when I made payment and I went out, she was by the corridor waiting for me. And so she stopped and asked me, hey, hello, young man, how are you? I said, she asked whether I was studying in the uni. I said, yes, I studied in the uni. She said, where are you from? I said, I'm from Ghana. She said, okay. said, you just did something in there I'm super happy about. I said, really? And what could this be? She told me that she stepped out to pick some items that she forgot to have picked from the shelves. And when she came back, she deliberately stood in front of me thinking that I would react. But I never reacted. And so she just wanted to let me know that that was something she really admired. I just told her, thank you very much. And so courtesy was one thing I learned, and I needed to up my game in terms of the level of courtesy you give to others whilst you were studying. You also needed to be more cooperative because we did a lot of presentations, and as part of the presentations, you were always put into groups of 2, 3, and above, and you could not have been on your grounds insisting that what you are saying is right, and so you need what you are doing is right. At the end of the day, you have a lot of problems with your group assignments.
Yes, now you're back. You were gone for a few seconds there. So I don't know if it's your internet or my internet. Some internet kind of just froze a little bit.
Can you hear me?
When you were talking about...
yeah, so can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so should I go back or is fine? Did you hear the other submission?
I heard about the example of the lady in the shop, and then you were talking about working in teams and not always being on the same side and having to compromise, and you know.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So the last bit I will add to this is that it also taught me how to show more concern to others, because I remember in one of the lectures I was late for the lecture, and there was this colleague of mine called Alex, and he sent me a message via messenger asking me, Sule, I've not seen you in class. And so I couldn't accept that message because I was on transit going back from my hostel to the class, the lecture hall. So I didn't see the message. So when I arrived and settled down, because I was late, so when I arrived and settled down, later I removed my phone and I realized that Alex had sent me a message. And when the lectures was over, I stepped up to him and I asked, Alex, thanks so much. He asked me for what? I said, you checked on me when I was late. I'm grateful. He said, come on, what are brothers for? And trust me, from that particular moment, Alex became one of my best friends in the class. And so showing concern to others personally is something I've also learned, apart from the teamwork that I have learned, apart from giving courtesy, and apart from teamwork. The other thing I learned again was about how to show concern for others. But as a professional, I think I've come to realize that network and culture are two great ingredients in the discharge of your duty as a sports psychologist. Okay? Because if the cultural settings of a particular place are not conducive, you will have problems as a sports psychologist operating in that particular environment. If you as a psychologist also do not have a very good vis-a-vis, you are working as a lone professional, there are some things that will pass by that you will not notice. And so having a great network and understanding the cultural differences and backgrounds of people are key ingredients to your success as a sports psychologist. So these are basically what I have to say with regards to my understanding about the issue.
So, did you have any access or work with athletes in the UK? Just so you know, because I want the differences of sports psychology in Ghana and the UK. How were you able to bring your cultural thing to that of the UK, and then vice versa when you move back to Ghana?
Yes, I I worked with athletes in 2 categories when I was in the UK.
Okay.
One was the fact that I was playing in a team with some of the footballers.
Yeah.
And the other was when I was collating data for my dissertation.
Yeah.
So I worked with them on the field and off the field, because with the team that I played for, it gave me an opportunity to kind of like practicalize whatever I learned from the classroom anytime the opportunity came around whilst we were playing or training on the field. And then on the other side of the field, I worked with about 15 athletes to collect my research data to present for my dissertation. And so back in Ghana, I have worked with 2 different clubs at the moment, but I've also done some part-time jobs for other clubs as well. And so largely, most of my consumers are footballers. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened. Most of my consumers are footballers. And so I'm yet to work with other athletes outside the football arena. But the difference I have seen in the 2 cultures, the difference I've seen in the 2 categories of athletes, is the fact that the athletes in the UK, both on the field and off the field, do agree and understand the relevance and importance of sports psychology to their performance.
Yeah.
What they, however, have problems with is the issue of being open to discuss their personal stuff with you. Yeah, people are being skeptical about opening up to discuss their personal stuffs with you. But you agree with me that in this job called sports psychology, it has no secrets, because for you to be able to get the right interventions and the right kind of strategies and methods to be able to design any intervention for the person will have to tell you all that matters. And so yes, the athletes in UK kind of understand how the system operates, and they equally know that when I'm faced with eating disorders, I have to go to a dietitian. When I have issues with my muscle, I have to go to the physio. But when I have issues with my mind, then I have to see the psychologist. But when you get to the psychologist, because of the previous instances, you need to bring all that on board for the psychologist to equally understand where you are coming from, because you have a history. Yeah. And so the psychologist will make references to the dietitian and the physio that you have already contacted to be able to come up with something to help you. It's not same in Africa.
Okay.
It's not same in Africa. You see, in Africa, what we know is that there is something called sports psychology. But we do not take necessary steps to, one, access it. We do not take necessary steps, one, to assess it, and two, even when we assess it and we are giving the interventions, we hardly implement the interventions. And then lastly, we kind of try to, there's a great misunderstanding between sports psychology and spiritualism in Africa. You know, people equate sports psychology to spiritualism in Africa. And so it's difficult to be able to convince someone that what you are having or what you are going through is a mind issue and not a spiritual issue.
Yeah.
Athletes in Africa are difficult to be convinced that any challenge you face, which is a mental problem, is actually a psychological problem. What they think about is that it's a spiritual problem. And so they prefer to handle such issues in the spiritual way than the psychological way. And so these are the differences in the athletes that I have worked with.
So how do you overcome some of these challenges or trying to educate the athletes in Ghana about the importance of sports psychology?
It's a difficult task because it's a whole lot of issues that needs to be tackled. But Karen, in my own little way, what I've started doing is to write and publish some aspects of sports psychology issues onto the internet. And I do that with a reputable publishing company. So anytime I write issues on psychology, I get it published by those particular institution. My reason for doing that is to share my understanding of sports psychology through the print media with other Ghanaians. Again, I might not have access to all the radio stations because the region that I am in is quite a distance from the capital.
Yeah.
But within the region, occasionally I step into the studios and I pick a psychological topic. I discuss it with the listeners. I invite questions. I clear the questions, and we move forward.
Yeah.
There are other instances where personal teams and some individuals have approached you based on their problems, psychological problems, that I have gone into to support them to come out of those issues. And continuously, some have always kept in touch with you, most especially prior to their matches. And so these are little ways I'm coming in to support and also to kind of share my little understanding of sports psychology issues in Ghana. So it's not going to be a one-day wonder. It's going to be
definitely not.
And once it's a process, I believe that's going to take a lot of time. But I'm very, very resolute in this particular enterprise. I'm very, very resolute because I believe one day the men at the top will see the need for us to put the structures in place to bring it to the table that, look, we have got into a time where you cannot continue to downplay the importance of sports psychology on performance and other related issues. So these are the little things I'm doing personally to advance sports psychology in Ghana.
Is there anything else you feel that can be done or needs to be done to keep raising the awareness of sports psychology? And maybe if you can give a bit of a brief for our viewers so that they can understand a little bit what exactly sports psychology is, because I feel like we use the term and some people might understand, but there are a lot of people who, no matter where they're from, even other parts of the world, still don't fully understand what sports psychology is. So you and I both work in the field and we know the importance, but maybe if you can just kind of give a bit of a shout out to why it's important and why it's needed and what we can do to keep raising awareness of the importance.
So on the issue of if there are any other issues I think we should look at, yes. One other issue I think we should look at is the structural reforms in Africa and Ghana specifically. We treat sports psychology as a separate enterprise.
Yeah.
And you know that there are times when the sports psychology would need the assistance of the coach, the sports psychology would need the assistance of the administrator of the field or individual athletes. You equally need the assistance of dietitians, physiologists, name them, because you all come together as a team to advance the welfare of the athlete. And so we don't look like a super enterprise. We work with other enterprises to be able to achieve our objectives, except otherwise that it is narrowed, the problem at hand is narrowed down to only psychology. Then that is fine. You can go on with your own exercises. And on the issue of what sports psychology is all about, all other psychology that we have, because we have clinical psychologists, we have, name them, educational psychology, a whole lot of aspects of psychology. But when we talk specifically about sports psychology, we are talking about that aspect of psychology that has to do with what form, what method, what strategy of psychology or methods or strategies that we can use to support athletes who suffers or who goes through varied issues that have to do with or impede their performances. Is that fine? And so
yeah, that's fine.
And so I think there's a distortion. Is it okay at your end? Okay. Right. So that is basically what sports psychology has to do. Is that aspect that deals with all other issues relating to sports that impedes the athlete's progress. And so what we have to do to be able to advance this course is, one, to make athletes or to convince athletes the relevance, the importance of sports psychology to their advancement. How relevant it is to their advancement. Because see, when we are talking about sports psychology, it's either on the field or off the field. Basically, what we do in Ghana is the locker room sports psychology. When I say locker room, the kind of sports psych exercises we design in the dressing room prior to a particular game. Okay, but we all know that when you have a match a week to the match, a whole lot of things will have to go up here, and that might even also affect what you eat. That might also even affect how you rest. And so you don't wait till the D-Day itself that you begin to develop a particular kind of sports psych exercise to go to the dressing room and administer it to the athletes and expect them to go and perform. That is the last bit of sports psychology you can offer a particular team. But the process itself must start somewhere. The process itself must start somewhere. And when you do that, you will see that the athlete will come to understand that, yes, my issue has not only got to do with just going into the game and playing the football match. It has to do with how I rest, it has to do with what I eat and at what time. It has to do with how I focus on the game. And so when they see the need, I'm sure at that material moment, psychs will not be chasing athletes in Africa, but athletes would rather be chasing psychs to help them.
Definitely, but let me be honest with you. This problem is not only an African issue. I know that here in Germany or in Malaysia and Dubai where I worked, I would get a call from an athlete a day or two before a competition saying, hey, I need your help. And I'm like, sorry, I left my magic stick at home. Let me go get that. So, you know, it's a struggle everywhere. I remember when I did my internship in Ghana, I remember the coach coming up to me going just before a game going, all right, Karen, give that motivational speech. I'm like, go do your best. Go, you know, like, what am I supposed to do 20 minutes before game? So, but yeah, that problem is not only a problem in Ghana, so don't worry about that. It's a worldwide thing that we have a long way.
That reminds me, okay, that reminds me, so that reminds me, Karen, that reminds me, you know, Tokyo, Olympics in Tokyo is just some few months from now.
Yeah.
And Ghana
a few weeks
is
from
preparing
now.
a whole contingent. Ghana is preparing a whole contingent
Yeah.
to participate in that competition. Okay. Before the Tokyo Olympics, there was another Paralympics held in US. I don't know. I forgot the name. No. They gave a call to my boss. I have someone who mentors me. They gave a call to Dr. Ofori. 5 days to the program. And they were asking doctor to should let us come to Winneba, Cape Coast. They were camping Cape Coast. Doctors should let us come to Cape Coast and assist them to be able to prepare adequately for the competition. So when doctor called, I said, doctor, you know how this thing is done? He started laughing. He said, no, 5 days is inadequate. But that is what the Federation is calling for. So what do we do? So that goes to add up to your submission. So I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, we still have a long way to go, but at least they're starting to call you and want your help, even if it's only 5 days before competition. At least that it's showing that there is more of an awareness slowly, and people are starting to reach out to us, even if it's wrong. We still need to work on that. That it's like anything else, it takes time, and we don't have a magic wand where we can just swing it and everything works out. The athlete needs to put in the effort, just like they physically need to put in the effort. They need to work on their mental game too, and just like improving a skill set, it takes time to improve your mental skills.
Yeah, definitely. That's true. I agree with you.
So what are some of the joys and frustrations that you've experienced while working as a sports psych in Ghana? I think some of the frustrations have already been discussed with last minute people coming to us last minute for help. But what are some of the other things that, the joys, the frustrations as a sports psych in Ghana?
Okay, so I will go for the frustrations first. Karen, one major frustration is the fact that an athlete will call you or a team will call you that we need this assistance. Though it is late, you will come up with something for them. After designing the intervention and giving it to the individual or the club to go and implement, along the line, they will abandon the intervention. So when you abandon the intervention, and yet they expect results. So when it's like that, I ask them a simple question. Have you ever seen a sick person get well after stopping his medication? No. You cannot get well, abandon your medication along the line. No, it's not. It doesn't work like that. The interventions we designed for you are your medications. And for you to get well, you must stick with the medication to the latter. Nothing more, nothing less. And so I get frustrated anytime set things come up. The second thing that frustrates me as a practitioner in Ghana is the fact that athletes do not open up to you when they want to tell you their problems. They tell you, they give you some of the information, and they withhold some of the information. Karen, you are a sports psych, and you know how relevant getting the whole pieces of the information is for you at the site to be able to come up with something to help the athlete. And so, very important for you to design your intervention is to have the whole package of the information to assist you. And so, it can be frustrating.
Yep. To
design an intervention for an athlete, and it does not capture the details that he's supposed to have given you. Another frustration I get is the fact that athletes are unready to step out to be cancelled. Karen, psychology or psychological sessions or sports psychological sessions are voluntary, except otherwise. Except otherwise, they are majorly voluntary. Except that a particular club or a particular individual has a particular focus that he or she wants you to help them to develop. And so when you step in without the athlete inviting you, you can be rest assured that you will hit the rock. Because they will not give you the cooperation that you want to be able to succeed. And so you are into a dilemma. An athlete will not step up, but the management of the athlete will ask you to go in. When the athlete is not ready, but the management of the athlete is asking you to step in because they have seen something wrong with the athlete. But the athlete himself has not seen anything wrong with him. So how do you handle such a situation? So at that material moment, you are left in a very bad state. Lastly, what frustrates me is the fact that the required resources needed to execute your work as a sports psychologist are highly limited in Ghana and in Africa. I earlier mentioned that we don't work in isolation. We work with other experts on the job. And so you step in as a sports psych, you do your job very well, but the athlete goes into bad eating habits, and that knocks off all your interventions because the person was not counseled by a dietitian. And so we need other resource persons to be able to become more and highly effective in the discharge of our work. Is the problem we have in Africa. We are lacking the resource people. Yes, these are the few challenges we face. But there's a greater joy, Karen. There's a greater joy. And let me share one of them with you. The greater joy is the fact that in contemporary Ghana, some athletes will still pick up their phone and call you, "Hey, Suleiman, and no matter how late the call is, you still feel very happy in the role sports psychology plays." Another thing that gives me joy is the fact that, assuming without admitting that there have been some delays and you have no option than to prepare a locker room or a dressing room sports exercise for a particular team, or get into the dressing room, maybe it's a kind of little game to keep their focus. And so you execute this particular exercise, come up with a maxim for the whole team to carry onto the field. They develop the maxim, they stick with the maxim, they step onto the field, and they win the game. Then that time you feel very happy because you know that you have achieved. And so these are the few joys that comes to me. And so I stay focused. There are so many obstructions, but the little ones that makes me happy, makes me feel like to continue doing my job.
Yeah, it's always great to get the little thank yous or the little calls from the athletes, knowing that you play an important role in their success. So are there any differences between the interventions that you applied in the UK compared to the interventions that you use in Ghana? Did you have to adjust the interventions? Because
not much.
Okay.
Not much.
Okay.
Not much. Actually, almost all the interventions that I have applied in the UK seem to be working perfectly in the African context. But there are some other traditional methods that I have to adapt working with some athletes in Africa. You know, the issue of network. The issue of network in Africa is very key. You might have a very good network, but the needed resources within the network are not there. So you can have 100 people in your network, 97 are not able to help you. Someone might have only a network of 5, and all the 5 are effective network people. They are able to help you at any point in time. So yes, numbers versus quality will come in. And so traditionally, there are some of the athletes who prefers to hear the voice of other people that they are conversant and comfortable with. And so when you want to administer an intervention to such a person, let's say you are using the path goal intervention, you want the person to set his or her goals into a particular competition. It is therefore important that when you notice such a person, it is important to make sure that at the time of administering or designing the intervention, the person he or she listens to more is part of your program. So that when you speak to the person they listen to more will make a follow-up discussion and kind of like your work for you. Because when you speak to him or her one-on-one, you are like a stranger. Some of them don't pick it. They will never pick it. They will never implement it until the person they are conversant of. And so typically the differences are not much. But at some point in time, you need to be more creative in some of the interventions. Again, language barrier. You have some challenges in designing your interventions. Because you know in Ghana we have officially we have about 9 local languages we speak in Ghana. And so if I happen to be working at the southern sector where their language is different from the northern sector, that means that I cannot design an intervention without the support of someone else. You and I know that there are 9 principles of sports psychology. And one of the principles is confidentiality. And so when the third party comes in, the issue of confidentiality is lost. So if the athlete does not agree for a third party to be added, no matter the intervention you develop, you cannot make a headway. Basically, that's what I do. The differences in terms of the interventions, they are the same, but you need to kind of localize what you are doing in Ghana and than what they do in the UK. That's the only time you can make a headway.
Yeah, you need to adjust to the culture you're working in. I know we touched on it briefly, but the difference in mindset from athletes in Ghana compared to athletes in the UK, I know you touched briefly on it, that in Ghana it's more spiritual. They believe more it's to do with their spirituality than the mindset or the mental game. But are there any other differences in the acceptance of sports psychology and the mindset of sport for an athlete, how important the mindset is and when it comes to their performance?
Maybe just one. I will just add one to that particular submission I made earlier. Actually, in Ghana, some people actually think that the whole issue of sports psychology is waste of time. It's waste of time. Look, let's say that you want to help an athlete to be able to stay focused. And so you go and approach an athlete and ask him or her to sit down, close the eyes, and do not let anything cross his or her mind. If anything should cross their mind, signal you and you stop the clock. You are trying to develop focus. And so you want an athlete to have a very free mind in the period of how long they can with your watch, your stopwatch. And so you start with the athlete. And so the athlete is asked to, on the field of play, and make sure that he or she concentrates on that sport on the field of play, whilst you put the person on timer. The athlete does that, You stop the watch, maybe after 30 seconds, something comes up in the mind and disturbs the person's thinking. So they signal you and you stop the clock. You are going to do this continuously for some time to be able to help the athlete to adjust to the focus that they need to be able to perform. Now what you are doing is not going to help me in any way. Now I'm going to sleep. I prefer to sleep. You see? And so seeing some side exercises as waste of time and not paying much attention to it makes your work even more difficult as a sports psychologist. Yeah, so that is another thing I will have to add to the fact that spirituality has overtaken sports psychology. If there is anything I will add the fact that apart from athletes, I also think that management of clubs and athletes still have a long way to go as far as sports psychology is concerned in Ghana. Because they are the administrative element of the game. And so when they see the need and the relevance of sports psychology, their athletes will have no choice but to succumb, to submit for the psychology exercises. But you approach a club and the whole setup of the club do not actually believe in the efficacy of sports psychology. So how do you expect athletes who work under them to believe in sports psychology? And so it kind of like it's a ladder thing. Right from the top, people need to reorient. People need to give a thinking about the relevance. And once we do that, it will trickle down to the base.
All right, are there any tips that you can give for people who want to study abroad or who want to work abroad to make that transition a little bit easier?
A good question. Yeah, it's a very good and interesting question because I think I needed some of this question. I think if I had gotten this orientation before going to the UN, I arrived. Yeah, I think to study in the UK, you need to understand that you are going into a culture that is completely different from yours. And so once you agree that you are stepping into a completely different culture, then you expect what you see back home and where you are going to. And there is the need for you to also adjust to weather, because there's a big variation when it comes to weather. I stand to be corrected. Scotland is the only place where it can rain, it will snow, and the sun will shine. And so you can have
Not just Scotland.
seasons in, yes. You can have all the seasons in one day. So when you don't get oriented and you step there, you might be faced with issues of weather and how to go about taking good care of yourself with regards to weather. Again, another thing I would advise, you should also understand that when it comes to organization, when it comes to putting things into their perspectives, I mean, you cannot run away from that fact that, and so you cannot just do anything at anywhere and that's it. You are free to go. No, you can't do that. Well-placed structures, and at any point in time, you need to make sure that you are obeying and going by those structures. And so if you think that You can just do whatever you want at any point in time, and that's it. Nothing happens to you. You might find yourself wanting when you use that attitude up there. But let me narrow it down to in terms of academics. See that I want other people to and those having interest to study to understand the fact that you must be original at any point in time. You must just be yourself. If you try to be someone else, you will struggle because that is not you. And so the more you struggle to be someone else, the more you are exposing your integrity. And integrity is a very key issue when it comes to dealing with the wife. It's important. Even when you are failing, you should still be original. You should not change because you are failing to turn into someone else. No, you must be yourself. And trust me, once you stay true to yourself and you are yourself, and they get to understand that this is what you stand for, then that's it. People will appreciate you.
Yeah.
Some will not agree with you, but trust me, there are others that will definitely agree and go with you. So that should be settled. Again, another advice I would give is the fact that you must be someone who deals with time and must obey timelines. If you have problems with going with timelines, then you are going to struggle when you want to study abroad. Virtually everything is on time. Virtually everything is on time. The time you leave for your lectures, the time the lectures will close, the time you get your train, the time you get your bus, the time you have to go for dinner, the time you have to go for a program, everything is about time. And so if you have so much disrespect for time, you are going to struggle staying abroad. You definitely will have problems staying abroad. Then the last aspect I will add is how to navigate your way in and out of the town or the big cities. You know, for example, if you want to travel from Glasgow to Edinburgh and you have not been to Edinburgh before, you might need to use your Google map to do a whole lot of rehearsals, you know. I'm telling you a life experience, Karen. I remember when I wanted to visit the castle at Edinburgh. I had to go online for like 5-6 times to be sure my routes in and out of Edinburgh. And I have to monitor the timing of the trains, what time is suitable for me to arrive, and what time is suitable for me to leave. And so I have to fit into the journey before I could even buy the ticket. And so everything must be planned. If you are also a very bad planner, indirectly, I'm saying, if you're a bad planner, you have a lot of problems. You must be able to plan everything out. If you have a program next week, you should plan it this week. If you have a program next 2 weeks, you should plan it next week. You must always be ahead of your schedules. Plan to share.
Yes, Ghana, maybe time doesn't work in the rest of the world, in a lot of parts of the world. I remember when I did an internship in Ghana, and my football coach told me the training starts at 6 in the morning. So me being the German, I was there at 10 minutes before 6. No one was there. 6 o'clock still, no one was there. 6:15, still no one was there. At 6:30, I called my coach. I'm like, Coach, where is everyone? And my coach is still sleeping, saying, no, but training is at 7. I'm like, but you told me 6. He goes, yes, I tell everyone 6 so that they're there at 7.
That's interesting, That's African, that's Ghana time for you. That's the Ghana time for you.
Exactly.
you will miss out on a lot of things in 1 hour if you do that in the UK. You will miss out a lot of
Yes.
things in 1 hour. You will miss a lot of yeah. So
All right, Suleiman, is there anything else that you think our audience needs to know about sports psychology, about working in Ghana, or the athletes that are watching us from Ghana? How can they reach out to you? How can they contact you so they can get the support, athletes, coaches, so they can get the support from you?
thank you very much. I think that the industry that we refer to as sports psychology is a very important one. And I think that it is about time that we do not only concentrate on the physicals in performance, we should also concentrate on the mental component of the performance. It is very important for every athlete to be mentally tough and mentally ready for any battle that's ahead of them. If you give so much to the physical and you neglect the mental, you will always be knocked off, because the athlete that has a little edge will always succeed ahead of you. And so my word of advice to clubs, managers, club administrators, technical men, coaches, athletes in general, is the fact that you should not preparations for competitions to only the physicals. You should occasionally make sure that you blend both of you blend the physical and then the psychological. And so unfortunately in this aspect of our country, we do not have the numbers. We do not have the numbers. But the few of us that are available, I'm sure will not hesitate to come to your assistance. At the material movement, I don't charge for all the psych exercises I do in Ghana. I don't. And so there's one other thing I think that if I do, people might get interest to come. Because once you put a fee on it and someone doesn't have it but needs it, the person will not approach you. But I'm also doing it in such a way that people do not abuse it. Because in Ghana, everything free is abused. And so I'm being mindful about how I go about it. We are available on Facebook. If you want to send a friend request, you can find me as Sulemani Agbonor GH. We are on Instagram as Agbonor Rufai. And then I think those are the social media handles that I currently operate. But soon, it won't be long. I'm designing a blog. I will occasionally publish some psych papers, for people who are interested and will not want to have one-on-one contact with me, can go there and then read and make their own meaning if they so like. So it won't be long. I will launch this particular website or blog on Facebook, and so people should watch out. When it's ready, I will share it on my personal wall, and then I will ask some few friends to share. Those who are interested will always come there. What I intend to do is that before the close of every month, I should publish at least some paper for people to watch, or for some people to read. And then my campaign of moving from radio station to radio station to talk about the issue of sports psych is also on the run. I will continue on that tangent. And for those of them who might also want to have me on phone, for want of time or distance, if they want me on phone, they can reach me out on 024 82 68 and 333. I take the number 024 82 68 333. If you think that you need to send an email, it's agbonorufai@gmail.com. Agbonor is AGBO, and I'll be available to reply or respond to your issues. And lastly, I want to also suggest that administrators of our game in Ghana should, as a matter of urgency, begin to put the structures in place. What we don't have in Africa what we don't have in Ghana specifically is about the structures. And so I don't see why the National Sports Authority and the Ministry of Youth and Sports can go about constructing football fields, and yet they don't see the need to invest in sports psychologists. They don't see the need to invest in physiotherapists. They don't see the need to invest in dietitians to come and support the game. It is about time. It is about time the ministry begins to look into those aspects. Because, look, we virtually borrow. How? How? I mean, you have a national team who's going to compete at the international level, and there's no single side that goes with them. I mean, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. They decide to administer his intervention in Ghana before they fly. How can you do that? Worst case scenario. Worst case scenario. You must travel with the side. Whether you are playing a friendly match, you are playing a competitive match, there must always be a side. And so I think it's about time the ministry looks into those things. Let us not concentrate on the physicals. It is about time we concentrate on other aspects of the game. And psychology is one thing I think if you look into, it will help us. Already, we are fortunate because in Ghana, if we do a critical analysis of our players and athletes, they are already mentally tough because they have gone through tougher seasons, tougher times to hit the top. And so when you give them the latest psychology, they are good to go. They are good to go. So I think administrators of our sporting activities should begin to look into that. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for your time, and thank you everyone who joined us and what was watching us. It was a pleasure speaking to you, Suleiman. It always is great talking to you and learning about and just exchanging information. It's always nice to exchange information with people from other parts of the world to see the differences, the similarities that we have. So thank you so much for joining me today and talking to me.
Thank you so much, Karen, for having me. I'm so grateful, and I hope that we'll have another one another time. Issues that we want to look at.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone, and see you next week when I'll be doing another live. All right, bye guys. Thank you for joining us. Bye.